When you tell your doctor that you hike, what do they really hear? Is it, the patient walks a lot? If you tell them, I just completed a 25-day hike, or I hike 5 miles daily, do they really integrate that into the health discussion? I just climbed up the New England Scenic Trail from the Dynamite Trail up to the crest, not quite to the top of Goat Peak. It's about a 250-foot elevation gain in 0.2 of a mile. So while the 250 feet elevation gain isn't all that big of a deal, doing it in 0.2 of a mile, it's a steep stretch of trail here. That's not what your doctor thinks of when you say you hike a lot, or that you do a lot more than 2.5 hours of walking a week to get your exercise. Your doctor may be competent, caring, and working hard in a system that gives them 15 minutes to understand your entire health life. The problem isn't about competence, it's about framework. When you're a serious older hiker, their framework may not include you. I'm not a doctor and this isn't medical advice. I'm an engineer with 42 years of systematic problem solving. When something doesn't add up, I ask why not. A lot hasn't added up in my medical consultation over the years. One basic recommendation is for 150 minutes of moderate aerobic exercise per week. Going from sedentary to moderately active produces significant health gains, reduced cardiovascular risk, better metabolic markers, improved cognitive function. The recommendation is appropriate for its intended audience. The benefits are front-loaded. Going from 0 to 150 minutes produces dramatic improvement. Going from 150 to 300 minutes adds less benefit. That's the diminishing returns we hear about. That recommendation doesn't account for serious older hikers who put in 40, 50, or even 60 hours hiking each week. 24 times the recommended amount, sustained for weeks with a loaded pack on variable terrain in whatever weather is encountered, is not just more of the same, it's qualitatively different. You don't get from walking 2.5 hours a week to hiking 60 hours a week just by walking more. The conditioning required is different. There's musculoskeletal demands, cardiovascular adaptation, metabolic flexibility, recovery time. In the same way that no amount of jogging will produce a sub-4 minute miler, no amount of neighborhood walks produces the capacity for sustained hiking. When you tell your doctor you hike, and their framework was built for the 150 minute a week patient, they may try to shoehorn you into that model. Here's an example of why this matters. While on a 5-week hike recently, I was reporting my weight weekly to my doctor's office through a phone app. Partway through, I got a frantic text from a nurse noting my weight loss and asking if I had other symptoms. I wanted to tell him, yeah, lately I've had to stop to rest a few times a day. I feel like I've been hauling a 35-pound pack up and down hills for weeks. But I decided to play it straight and not cause confusion, and assured him it was perfectly normal and expected. The monitoring system was working as designed. He looked at the data and responded appropriately. It meant something different in my context than it did in the context that the alert was built for. Unexplained weight loss in a sedentary older adult is a legitimate red flag. I've seen it recently in a family member and we're worried about it. Weight loss in someone hiking 15 miles a day is an exercise effect. It's more consequential than a misplaced weight loss alert. After completing the John Muir Trail, 211 miles over 25 days at altitude, I had lab work done. Some values looked concerning on paper. eGFR, a measure of kidney function, was down. hsCRP, a marker of inflammation, was elevated. A doctor seeing those without context would see a concerning trend, but these are expected responses to prolonged exertion. Transient reduction in eGFR occurs during and after sustained exercise and mild dehydration. Elevated hsCRP reflects the inflammatory response to extended physical stress. Acute effects during and immediately after a long hike are not the same as chronic effects. Your hiking ability is itself clinical evidence. I was in the hospital for another matter, and the doctor assigned to rounds was a cardiologist. She was very concerned about my LDL cholesterol. Based on a single non-fasting blood test, she pushed what I considered inappropriate intervention. She talked to me as if I hadn't been living with and monitoring cholesterol in all its aspects, not just LDL, for 50 years. The possibility that I had a long history with it, had investigated it thoroughly with the preventive medicine team, and had made informed decisions about it didn't fit her worldview. She ordered a cardiac monitor to look for an arrhythmia. That was the responsible thing to do given the symptoms I was presenting with. That's a story I'll do a video about in the near future. She knew I had just completed a hike at high altitude with sustained cardiovascular output for weeks with a loaded pack, yet she was convinced that I must have major cardiovascular issues. She apparently had no conception for what that demonstrated about my cardiovascular health. A 67-year-old who completes the JMT has performed the equivalent of a very long, demanding stress test for 25 consecutive days. Could I have cardiovascular disease? Well, certainly, the human body is complex, but it seems unlikely that I could have done what I just did and neither dropped dead on the trail nor been forced to stop early. The LDL number was the only thing that counted to her. Not imaging, not my hiking capacity. When cardiac monitor results were not only clean but stellar, it was treated as unimportant. To be fair, she was following guidelines designed to prevent cardiovascular disease in large populations. High cholesterol is a risk from a population perspective. For levels over 220 milligrams per deciliter or 5.7 millimoles per liter, the higher the total, the higher the risk. It's not absolute. Plenty of people who have high cholesterol never develop cardiovascular disease, and plenty of people with low cholesterol do. She wasn't wrong to be concerned if we had no other evidence. Her mental model didn't have a way to read cardiovascular fitness as part of the whole picture, nor did imaging that contradicted the population statistics. That's a gap in how medicine is practiced, at least in the United States. Here's where age comes in. If I was a 21-year-old with elevated cholesterol, clean imaging would carry less weight. I'd be too young for much damage to have accumulated. In the U.S., standard practice is to prescribe cholesterol-lowering medications, usually statins, based on risk factors. If a patient treated with statins doesn't develop cardiovascular disease, the intervention is deemed to have worked. Well, maybe it did. Maybe the disease wouldn't have developed anyway. But at my age, with 50 years of high cholesterol under my belt, direct images of the arteries are meaningful. Those years of risk factors can be discounted when the images are clean. Arterial disease has had a half-century to develop, and it hasn't in any substantial way in my system. That's evidence that the cardiologist outright refused to consider. Instead, she told me to ignore the imaging because my high LDL was causing unmeasurable microdamage that no tests could detect. I should believe in her unicorns rather than the direct evidence, I guess. The adaptations that result from regular hiking are simply not achievable through conventional exercise recommendations. Your cardiovascular system doesn't just get incrementally fitter from hiking, it undergoes adaptations in cardiac efficiency, mitochondrial function, and oxygen utilization that a 150-minute-a-week program never triggers. Musculoskeletal resilience on variable terrain, balance and proprioception on uneven surfaces, and tolerance for sustained discomfort are adaptations that matter for healthy aging. They're essentially invisible to conventional medicine's measurement tools. At a serious level of fitness, a significant portion of the effort isn't producing new adaptation, it's defending existing adaptation against the natural trajectory of aging. That's fighting a current. The moment you ease up significantly, the current takes you somewhere you don't want to be. So where does that leave us older hikers? First, context is everything when it comes to timing lab work. Numbers measured shortly after an extended hike are not your baseline numbers. Get labs done before a major hike or several weeks after, unless you're doing so intentionally like I did. If you get immediate post-hike labs, be sure your doctor knows this. Second, your fitness history and capability is clinical evidence that should be considered. For assessing your cardiovascular risk, the fact that you just completed a major hike or day hike often is relevant data. Third, if your doctor is alarmed at numbers that don't match how you feel or what you know about your own physiology, seek out a doctor with a sports medicine or exercise physiology background, not to get a more favorable opinion, but to get a more informed one. Fourth, and this is a necessary warning, older adults with certain conditions such as advanced cardiovascular disease may not benefit and may actually be hurt by undertaking a strenuous hiking regimen. That's probably not most people viewing this channel, but it bears mentioning. The 150-minute recommendation is appropriate for the sedentary population. You are not in that population. The population model your doctor uses every day is for patients around the average. If you've spent decades moving away from that average, deliberately, through hard work, that's worth something. Be sure your doctor accounts for it. As always, work with your healthcare team. Be curious about your own health. Ask questions when something doesn't add up. You're the expert on how you feel. Your doctor needs that information to do their job well. If you found this information useful, please like, share, subscribe, and comment on this or other topics you'd like me to cover. And if you haven't seen this video, I recommend you take a look at it now. Thanks for watching.